Hidden cameras are meant to protect us. They capture the moments we miss, the intrusions we fear, and sometimes things we were never supposed to see. Whether placed by strangers with ill intent or discovered by pure accident, the footage they reveal can turn a normal life into a waking nightmare. These are 3 true stories of people who found hidden cameras, only to wish they never had. Jake and Lisa had been looking forward to their weekend getaway, a cozy, secluded Airbnb in the mountains, far from the chaos of the city. The listing had glowing reviews, clean, well-maintained, and most importantly, private. The moment they arrived, it seemed perfect. A rustic wooden cabin surrounded by dense trees, with a wraparound porch and a warm fireplace inside. A note from the host, Mark, was left on the kitchen table. "Welcome, make yourselves at home. Hope you have a wonderful stay." Their first night was peaceful. They cooked dinner, watched a movie, and sat by the fire with glasses of wine. But later, as Lisa was brushing her teeth, she noticed something strange in the bathroom mirror. It looked too perfect. No smudges, no dust. But something about it felt off. She called Jake in, jokingly saying, "You ever seen those horror movies where the mirror is actually a two-way window?" Jake laughed, but his expression changed when he tapped the glass. Instead of a dull thud, it made a hollow sound. His stomach dropped. Curious, he grabbed his phone and shined the flashlight against the mirror. That's when they saw it, a tiny pinhole in the corner of the glass, almost imperceptible. Lisa's breath hitched. Jake, suddenly filled with adrenaline, inspected the edges of the mirror. It wasn't mounted, just pressed against the wall. With a yank, he pulled it off. Behind it was a small, dark space, and inside that space was a camera. Still, blinking, still recording. Lisa let out a gasp and stumbled backward, clutching her mouth. Jake reached inside and pulled out the tiny device, his hands shaking. Then he noticed something worse. There was a hole in the back of the hidden compartment, leading into the wall, meaning someone could have been watching them from inside the house. Without a word, they bolted. Grabbing only their wallets and phones, they jumped into their car and peeled out of the driveway. On the way down the mountain, Jake called the Airbnb host, his voice shaking with rage. "You sick freak, we found your camera." There was a pause before Mark responded. "What camera? I don't own that place anymore. I sold it 6 months ago." Silence. Lisa's hand tightened around her phone as she stared back at the dark outline of the cabin disappearing in the rearview mirror. Then, who left the note? A babysitter finds hidden cameras in a family's house, but the real horror begins when she realizes who's actually watching. Megan was a college student who babysat part-time. When she got a job offer from the Connors, a well-off couple, with 2 young kids, it seemed perfect. They paid well, had a beautiful home, and seemed normal enough. Her first night there, the parents gave her a tour, ending in the nursery. Mr. Connors pointed to a small teddy bear on the shelf. "That's Charlie. The kids love him. He even has a little camera inside so we can check in on them." Megan didn't think much of it. Baby monitors were common. The kids went to bed easily, and Megan settled onto the couch. But as she scrolled through her phone, something weird happened. Her own reflection appeared on the screen like she was being recorded. Creeped out, she looked around. The only camera she knew of was the one in the nursery bear. But then she noticed another teddy bear, sitting on the bookshelf across from her. Same design, same eyes, same little black nose. Her stomach turned. Getting up slowly, she approached it. As soon as she picked it up, she knew something was wrong. It was heavier than a normal stuffed animal. She turned it over and saw a tiny lens embedded in its left eye. Her skin went cold. Megan ran to the nursery and grabbed Charlie. Flipping over, she found the same thing. There were hidden cameras all over this house. Her hands shook as she called Mrs. Connors. "Hey, I just noticed there are cameras in some of the stuffed animals." Silence. Then a whisper on the other end. Get out of the house right now." Megan's blood ran cold. "What? Why?" "We don't own those cameras," Mrs. Connors whispered, voice frantic. "We just moved in a month ago and kept the toys that..." We're already here. The last owners, their babysitter, went missing. Megan's eyes darted around the room, every shadow now holding something sinister. Then she heard the closet door creak open. She didn't wait. She grabbed the kids and ran. Later, police discovered more cameras hidden throughout the house, all feeding into an unknown wireless network. The previous owners had never been caught, and whoever had been watching, they were never found. Ethan had lived in his apartment for 3 years without issue, but lately, he'd been feeling strange, like someone was watching him. At first, he brushed it off. Maybe it was paranoia. Maybe it was stress. But then he started noticing little things. His fridge slightly open when he hadn't used it. His toothbrush wet before he even got up. One night, unable to shake the feeling, he did something weird. He opened his laptop camera and pointed it at his own mirror, and that's when he saw it. A tiny red light, blinking, heart pounding. He inspected the mirror. It looked normal, but when he tapped the glass, he heard it. Hollow, with a sudden rush of panic, he yanked the mirror off the wall. Behind it was a hole, and inside the hole was a camera, still recording. But that wasn't the worst part. Inside the dark space behind the mirror, there were wires leading into the walls. Someone had set up cameras all over his apartment. Terrified, Ethan called his landlord. The man arrived, with a locksmith, and together they pried open a maintenance panel. The crawl space was small, cramped, and inside, they found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, a notebook filled with disturbing scribbles about Ethan's daily routine. Someone had been living in the walls. Ethan moved out that night. The police never found the intruder. But when they checked the camera footage, the most chilling part wasn't who was watching him. It was the fact that some nights the cameras had captured a figure standing inches away from his bed, just watching him sleep.